Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Take 10 Leadership Series, where we hope to motivate, inspire, and encourage your leadership. I'm Cameron Corder, and I'm joined by my partner, Jasmine Bullard. And we're joined today also with Melissa Logan, who's the president and CEO of the Blue Ridge Assembly. Welcome, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you. Delighted to be here.
That's great. Good weather up at Blue Ridge, and well, you said there's a lot of pollen in the air.
There was some pollen, but we had snow last night.
Oh, that's
So it's
crazy.
a beautiful, crisp day on the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe the people that watch don't know, I'm a second generation Y, so I love the Blue Ridge Assembly. I spent my life up there. There are home movies of me at probably age 2 crawling up and down the steps of those buildings. And I've joked with you and Roger Hibbard that I've got memories of being told to stop playing on the elevators by Mr. Washburn. Used to tell me to stop playing on the elevators when I was a kid and running me out. So I'm proud of all that you do at Blue Ridge Assembly, and you're a good friend. So we want to talk about our topic today is kind of managing through the crisis of what went through with the storm last September. But looking back at that, what in your career, how prepared were you to deal with a crisis of such magnitude?
That's a great question. That's a really good question. It's interesting. I don't know that anything prepares you for what happened. Fully
Yeah.
is what I would tell you fully. It but but I do see the different pieces that tremendously helped. So one is the pandemic, right? So the
Sure.
pandemic shuttered our organization as well. And during the pandemic, what we decided as a leadership team was the strategy screens for making decisions. And I'm a true Y person and was like, I need an acronym. And so it's RISE, RISE. And so as we made decisions, the first filter was return on investment, impact, was the decision sustainable, and could we execute it with excellence? So that was the strategy screens that we used in COVID, right? And then the second one was Rise and See, SEE. So we were going to be focused on stewardship, engaged, empowered employees, and then efficient operations. And so we walk out after the storm, and that's really, Cam, like the first thing, like as we were making decisions, that was our strategy screens. Those were our focuses immediately. And about 2 weeks later, when the leadership team sat down, I mean, we instinctively did that, those of us that were talking that day. But when the leadership team came down, I said, when we met, I said, I really think we're back here. And they were like, yeah, we are. That's where we're operating right away. And so I would tell you that that piece. The other was the week before was at my board meeting, and the board was on site. And one of their goals for me was advocacy. You've got to learn to advocate a whole lot more and a lot better.
Yeah.
So I've been in a crash course on advocacy lately.
That's such a great answer. As we transition, I know Jazz wants to bring up a point. I feel like George Costanza now in the Seinfeld episode, there's a scene where he says, leave on a high note. So he says, if you say something good, just go, thank you, good night. That's the way to
Yeah.
go. Well, what you just said is worth the price of admission. Let's turn it off now. If you've
All
watched
right, we're
that, you heard
done.
Rise and See. That's enough for you. Thank you and good night, everybody. That's worth the price of admission, what you just shared right
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
that was
Oh, thank you.
amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's
Good.
applicable to so many areas of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many areas of life. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. For me, I'm really curious about self-care. Like during those first few weeks, you know, what toll did it take on you personally and professionally, and just how did you handle that?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I feel like every time I take my pigtails down, my hair is a little bit more white, is what I would tell you. Because the first couple weeks, really, it was all pigtails. Because I have natural curly hair, just as a FYI. Um, So I live on grounds. So my house is on site. And part of that is that on call, and the VP of operations as well. We have 5 men of maintenance and their families live on site. And so it's part of our job to be here. And so we were all down on main campus when the storm came in. We had people on grounds, and my kids were by my side, right? So I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. And so it was a family affair. It was the 3 of us. It was kind of a family affair. So I didn't kind of leave them separate. Like they were down. They were helping. They had tasks once we were kind of in mode, for better or worse. That's kind of how we rolled. Those first few weeks. And the kids had to learn to be resilient. I would tell you, I think that they learned a greater appreciation for Blue Ridge and for what we do, and the staff team, and being a family. Because while I was worried about them, but they were with me, I was worried about the staff in the dorm and how we were going to get them taken care of. Right. And so the kids saw that, and they saw the empathy and the compassion. So I don't know if that really answers your question too much, but I brought them with me so that I knew that they were safe, and then we would all go to bed together. Right. So everybody would go to their rooms, and we would call it a night, or we'd get up and make sure that, okay, who was going to the creek to shower? Who was
Yeah.
getting buckets of water to come up? Right. So it just kind of, we all moved together, or I knew where they were, is what I can
But
tell you.
being on the grounds there, and them so heavily involved, were you able to ever get away from it? And especially in those first 14 days, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
where was the respite?
Yeah. There wasn't much respite right away until we had a board member from Charlotte say, "Hey, I have a place. I need you to go." And my board chair said, "Leave." She was like, "You have to leave." And she is a force to be reckoned with. Um, and then my VP of operations and my maintenance director were like, "You need to go. Just take a break." And so my commitment was, I'll go first if you follow. And so that's kind of what we did, Cam. And so I got off the mountain for 3 days and took a shower with hot water, dried my hair, did a couple of things in the Charlotte area, and then came back to the mountain. And then the next weekend he left.
Yeah.
And it was a force to get him off the mountain too, which was interesting, right? They had to force me to leave. And then I had to force everybody else to kind of take a break. But it's really hard. It's hard when you work for an organization. I've been here 28 years full time, right? I mean, Blue Ridge has molded me into the leader. The Y has molded me into the leader that I am today. And so to see it so hurt and broken, and to say, I'm going to go sleep in a warm bed, felt a little
Yeah.
selfish. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
felt
find
selfish.
it, I think it's like the power of the why is that self-care is not by yourself. Coming
Yeah,
together, rallying around each other to care for one another to help you care for yourself.
right.
It's the
Exactly.
why way.
It is the Y way. And that's how when people were bringing supplies in, and then that's how we distributed it. What families needed it? Where did it go? How is everybody doing? Does everyone have food? I mean, we were really looking at it through that lens. The other piece was, and I do it today, it happened before the storm, and even more important, is that work-life integration. And so how do you take care of you and your family? And then how do you lean into work? And sometimes you know, the leaning into family is from 10 to 1 in the middle of the day, when it's probably not the best, but it's when it's got to be. And then I'm going to do a little bit more later for work,
Yeah.
when my kids are doing something else. So that's kind of how we've looked at it
Did
now.
you
And
feel,
so that's
excuse,
the first couple weeks though. Yeah.
yeah. Did you, so your 13 and 15-year-old, they're mature enough and old enough that they see what's going on. Did you feel them worrying about you at all?
I wasn't that observant. But it was interesting because what staff would tell me, and when my board board members would come visit, they noticed how my kids were by my side. And they're like,
That may be a sign. That may be
that
the
was
sign.
a sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a sign. Yeah. The other thing that happened, and I've got to figure out how we knit this in to the YMCA is one of our board members and committee members came to the team and said, I really want to talk to your team and your staff about trauma-informed care.
Mhm.
And I want to talk to you about trauma. And what we didn't realize is that we had been through trauma.